one of the big things that thankfully has been brought to light with a lot of different, media publications or podcasters or, just, people such as yourself and RFK that have brought it to light, but is the amount of, missing children that, like, to me, that stat by itself should be enough for people to say, this is there is a huge problem, with our border policy, and you can leave immigration completely out of it because this doesn't have anything to do with it, like your point has been. Can you tell us about that tasking, how it came about, and kind of highlight that problem and speak to it?
Yeah, so I'll start with the tasking and the relationship with Kennedy. It's actually kind of funny, and I love Bobby Kennedy. Great guy. I feel like I get smarter, or I love people that present something that caused me to stop and think and pause. And I've listened to him, and I'm like, I don't agree with you on that, or I've listened to him like, never thought of it that way. But it goes back to when he was running for president. They asked me to come out there and educate him on the border. His campaign called, and I told him, I'm not voting for you, but border security should be apolitical. It is a national security issue, and didn't want Biden to win. So if we could disrupt the Biden campaign, I'm doing it. But I told him, I will help you write your border strategy, because he literally came out there, thought this was just a right-wing extreme. There was no issues. This was just made up. He spent 3 days down there. And the first night he saw 200 people from all over the world show up, and he's like, this is a problem. And how do we solve it? And basically his policy was Trump 2.0. It was, personnel, technology, infrastructure, work with Mexico, find, common sense, compassion. I got to speak a few times. I defended some of his positions where he was getting lit up by the media, the left-wing media, because they didn't want him challenging, Biden. I maintain a good relationship with him, but like I told him, I said, even when he went independent, I'm like, well, you're getting warmer, But then when he finally came on Team Trump, I'm like, you're a wise man. I told you were a wise man, because that's what the country needed, right? It was such a broken border. But the whole time I had been friends with Stephen Miller and Tom Homan and all that group. Like, I've known Homan since 2012 or 13 when I was in D.C. So we always stayed in touch, and we talked about what could we do. And he asked if I'd be willing to come back. I said, for the right position, for the right time, I would be willing to do that. And so after the election, we were super excited that we got President Trump back, and he said, "You still interested?" And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "Okay. Just let me know, but it's got to be the right position and the right time. I don't want a second career." And he called me. Tom Homan called me right after New Year's this year and said, "Would you be willing to come run Office of Refugee Resettlement, help fix that problem with the trafficking of the kids and bust up those policies and make things right?" I said, "Yeah, I can do that." He said, "Maybe 75, 90, 100 days. So I can do it for 100 days, no problem." And he's like, "Well, maybe longer, maybe a different position if you want it." I'm like, "Oh, let's just start with the 100 days. I'll be happy with that." Well, it just so happened at that point we'd heard that President Trump was going to appoint Bobby Kennedy to be the Health and Human Service Secretary. Well, the Office of Refugee Resettlement and handles unaccompanied children sits in Health and Human Services.
Which may surprise people.
Yeah, because honestly, Office of Refugee Resettlement was established under the last year of Jimmy Carter in 1980. And you go back in time, there was the boat people from Vietnam. We had a lot of refugees arriving in the United States. You still had the Cuban refugees. You had all so we needed an organized, system. After 9/11, we created Homeland Security. The Office of Refugee Resettlement and the unaccompanied children at the border were handled by Immigration and Naturalization Service. Well, when that got all busted up and they moved things around, they stuck the Office of Refugee Resettlement back to Health and Human Services. And that's where they sat it, so it would handle all unaccompanied children. And so anytime we caught somebody, whether it was ICE or Border Patrol or the port, if they were unaccompanied, they got placed with ORR. Going to do that, I'm like, absolutely. I didn't want to, again, a lot of things changed. Obviously, my family's with me, but the priority was I got to take care of them. But absolutely, I can go up there for 100 days. And so the fact that it was working for Bobby was a win. And in fact, I called him up and said, "Hey, I'm going to be there on Monday." And he's like, Really, like he didn't know because this is a White House appointment. This wasn't a Kennedy appointment. It just was a win to work for my friend, and I knew I was never shocked, or should I say, I wasn't surprised at what I was getting into. There were some individual cases that shocked me. That how on earth did we allow a child to be placed with that kind of sponsor? So now you know how I got there, right? It was a White House, Homan and Miller wanted me up there for an indefinite period of time. We agreed on the 100 days because when you put your life on hold, it's just your calendar that gets on hold. Life continues, so there's just things we needed to prioritize at the family. So 100 days was enough time. Didn't think I'd get as much accomplished in the first 100 days as we did. So there is a report that the Office of Inspector General did from last year that mentioned 300,000 unaccounted for children. We call them missing children, but there really was, they were processed, they were placed with a sponsor. We have no idea where they are. That's a problem.
Yeah.
Because they were going to places that kids shouldn't be going. A lot of that was starting to be addressed as I got there, but really it was the policies and practices at OR that allowed this to happen. Just things that we would never accept in our real lives, that why would we accept this with children? There was, without getting into too much because it's kids and sensitive and there's open investigations, but we weren't requiring, we'd say, proof of documentation, like some kind of a driver's license or something. We'd take photocopies. We needed proof of address. We literally placed people that were sending pictures of them with a photoshopped FedEx package, doing like this in front of a house, saying this is where I live. That was in the sponsor applications. We were accepting, the adults, like give the list of the adults in the house, or the adult sponsor, but not all the other adults. So we had no idea where we were placing these kids. To cut through the chase, we mirrored the policies going forward when I got there to match our basic domestic foster care system. So in other words, if you are going to sponsor a foster child, you have to provide XYZ. Proof of valid documentation. The I-9s that we do here in the United States, driver's license, proof of residency, proof of income, fingerprints for everybody that is 18 and older in the residency. So you don't know, what we don't know. So if you are an 18-year-old or you're a 30-year-old sponsor and you've got 5 people living with you over 18, we want the fingerprints of them to make sure that they're not traffickers or gangbangers or criminals. DNA testing to ensure family ties when they claim that they're a relative. These are just very simple asks, common sense asks for children to make sure children are in the safest, least restrictive environment when they've been brought through this system. And I'm telling you, there are kids that are placed that are months old to 17 years old, so that have, that have no say-so in what goes on. And every child that comes across the border that's unaccompanied, that's a criminal act because these children cannot make independent decisions, especially when they're 12 and younger. Somebody has paid to bring them across, and the system was allowing anybody to come pick them up if they just presented some documentation. We tell the story, and I never want to dehumanize anybody or equate a person to an animal, but my wife and I rescued a pit bull from an animal shelter who was being euthanized. We wanted to give this dog another shot. We had to provide our driver's license, proof of residency, and proof of income to adopt a dog that was about to be euthanized. Yet, and it had to be verified. We had to physically bring it. But the U.S. government was not doing those type of records checks on placing children with sponsors.
Whose call is that?
That would have been started from the top down, but Secretary Becerra, who was the then Health and Human Services, and his chiefs of staff and his agency director were allowing these things to just happen. And there were situations where the field specialists, the ones that would go like check to see if this is a good place to place a child, would report back saying no. There are unknown and unreported adults in this house, and the mom has tattoos that are affiliated with known gangs. Yet supervisors back in D.C. overrode that and said, no, everything says that that's their mom. Go ahead and place it with the mom.
Is the only thought process in terms of on what planet that would be acceptable is the sheer volume, and it was just
479,000 unaccompanied children came in the United States under Biden.
Yeah, I mean, so is that their thought process?
Got to be.
Hey, we don't have room for 500,000. If somebody will take them, just send them there and turn a blind eye.
I believe some of the thought process was volume. They were also, and you and I come from, your military background, my law enforcement background. We think differently. Health and Human Services Office of Refugee Resettlement is more of a social type worker environment, right? They're
giving everybody the benefit
altruistic mindset. I'm trying to help everybody out. This is, I do believe that, and I've learned this while I was there, that there's a lot of good people there that just didn't know because the way the system was set up that it was just like box checking, document uploaded. Yes, there wasn't those verification things that were done by very small groups of people that are no longer with us. So they kind of knew. But 479,000 people entered, kids under the age of 17 with no relatives, entered the country illegally under the 4 years of President Biden. And so 300,000 of them initially we couldn't connect the dots. I can tell you now, just in the last 6 months now of this administration, at least in the first 100 days, we had dropped that number down to like 86,000. And they've even moved closer to like 50,000 that have been like rescued, accounted for. The system, we realized that they're not placed in the wrong location. We have removed kids from environments and things like that. The other thing that was really shocked me, and like I said, nothing surprised me, but this shocked me. Well, this was March. So I got there in January, so this was March. We found a tranche of 65,000 notices of concerns that were never acted on since August of 2023. Now, a notice of a concern is a call or a report that anybody in the ORR system, the sponsor, the child, somebody that knows the situation, can report a concern. That's hence notice of concern. And some of these ranged from my sponsor took my Game Boy away, the bread I ate was stale, to there's some strange man that comes in every night and touches me inappropriately. There were 65,000 that never got addressed.
Just a manpower issue? Or?
They had one person assigned to that. You can't. There's no government solution that one person can be part of. It's just not the system. So it was like it was designed that we don't want to know. And then again, who's supervising that one person to find out if they're even doing their job? 65,000 opportunities to save a child. Now, the good news is we put a team together. We had Doge people come in there and help us take this system of those notice of concerns and go through them, collate them, do some, there's a lot of, some of those were duplicates and things like that. But we were knocking out 1,000 a week. Oh, excuse me. I think 800 a day is what we averaged. The goal was 1,000 a day to go through this. So I think we're at that part where we've cleared those. We have gotten multiple criminal leads out of that and turned those over to HSI, to FBI, to the U.S. Marshals. We've had several cases that we uncovered. A lot of these cases, we've put a team together to go back and go through all these cases from the Biden administration and go through with leave no stone unturned to see, did we miss something? And we were placing kids with known criminal people that have convictions for human smuggling. Yet we placed a child there. It was unbelievable to me that this was occurring. I wasn't surprised because I knew how the system was. But I was shocked to see that we allowed a 30-year-old claim to be the brother of a 14-year-old girl with clearly a photoshopped identification and fake birth certificate. I looked at it, I was like, who allowed this? This child got placed. She was raped by other adult men in the household, got pregnant. The Biden administration refused to charge that person. Thank goodness the state of Ohio at least arrested him. We represented that case to the feds back in February, and that person has now been charged and indicted federally as well. So when he gets out of his minor charge from the state of Ohio, the feds have got him. We've turned over multiple leads to places in New Jersey and things like that. So we've got the U.S. Attorney now, Alina Habba, who has worked very closely with President Trump, going after all of these perpetrators. And every day we were turning these cases and leads over to ICE. The last administration refused to allow cooperation between Office of Refugee Resettlement and other law enforcement. It's unbelievable. And that one I didn't realize. I did not realize that we were not allowed, the ORR was not allowed to say, hey, this person's not a citizen, we can't place this child. I mean, I didn't surprise me, but I thought, this is the U.S. government. We're supposed to be communicating. Yeah. I mean, I didn't want to be naive about it, but I also thought, there's no way you're going to give this child to this adult that you don't have proper information, or he's here illegally. Yeah. But that goes back to this continuing this cycle here. And I mean, it was heartbreaking because there was opportunities so many times that we could close the gap and save some lives. But I will tell you this, we ended all those practices. We have put interim final rules into the Federal Register to change some of the policies and practices and illegal acts that were put in there. We have ended Health and Human Services and the Office of Refugee Resettlement's complicity in the cycle by putting these checks and balances in place. And my last parting words to the staff was, if you knowingly or willingly are complicit in anything that harms a child, you will administratively be dealt with. And if there's a crime involved, you'll be criminally charged. And we really, what was very transactional the first, couple months I was there, I literally came in there with a sledgehammer and said, we're busting this up. Became transformational. Literally, I got the buy-in pretty quick, where other federal agencies were coming to us to say, how can we help? And I think I can tell you that it was very much a highlight of my career. Was on day 100, President Trump had a cabinet meeting, and Secretary Kennedy said, we have ended the practice of child trafficking and labor trafficking, the U.S. government and Health and Human Services. That is ended. And that was because of what me and the team that I put together had done with the support from the White House, Stephen Miller, Tom Homan, and everybody there. And obviously, Secretary Kennedy. And Bobby basically said, Chris, I trust you to handle this. You let me know what you need from me. And I kept him informed what he needed to know. He's obviously a busy man. But, it just was unbelievable. Again, I'm not a naive person. And again, I wasn't necessarily surprised. But some of the things shocked me that, and just peeling back layers and talking to people that were behind the scenes, they're like, we just didn't know. Yeah. We were never informed. We've learned more about what was happening. I was like, because the news wasn't reporting it. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think I don't think anybody really knew what was going on until you guys got in there and started shaking trees. I mean, I'm thankful that you did that. And
we still got a lot of more work to do. I'm going to tell you this, and there's still people. So many people, when it comes to human trafficking, they don't know they're victims until it's too late. And you've got people that will tell you that the mom and dad came across and they're sending for the kid, and maybe, and again, it's all criminal, it's all illegal. But you're looking at we want to keep the family together. So mom and dad had to do this, they had to pay the smuggler this way to get the child over. The problem is whatever contract they signed, what's really happened is not happening, because sometimes the kid never makes it, the kid gets raped, the kid gets tortured. Some kids never make it because organ harvesting is a real thing that goes on. I mean, these if you don't pay, the service fee changes, and so they take it out on the child or they take it out on mom and dad. So, I mean, these people that are involved in this are not good people. They're evil people, and they're exploiting people the entire time. And that's where these open border and these immigration advocates miss the mark. They need to come in the right way. We need to be smarter as well as a country on our immigration system. But going through the hole in the fence and expecting good things to come out of this is not, there's no way in this story does it end well for somebody or anybody, because that child is being exposed. And these smugglers, now that they got the kid here, then they're going to turn around and charge mom and dad more money. If not, you're going to have to work it off. Or, you know what, we know where your family's from. I mean, that's the problem, right?
Yeah. So what happens to the kids? I mean, what happened to that girl?
So that 14-year-old immediately will be taken back into the appropriate custody. Since she was undocumented, she would be brought back to the Office of Refugee Resettlement. We would make sure that she would be placed with an appropriate sponsor, appropriate setting. We would obviously make sure she has all the medical attention. It's going to be obviously psychological as well. We're going to be dealing with this for a while, but we're not just turn them to the streets, right? They're going to be taken into another facility where they'll be taken care of, a special consideration because of the trauma she's endured. So they will not be placed back into the cycle. We'll take them out of that cycle, and then we'll get them into an appropriate setting, because there's really 4 categories of sponsors. There's the parent or legal guardian. There's another adult relative. There is the unrelated adult relative, and then there is a refugee foster care system. So ideally, we would want it to be mom or dad, but in this situation, most of the time, mom and dad are illegally here, and they're part of a criminal network, and it's not always putting the kid. You would think being with their parents is the best thing, but if mom and dad are involved in the criminal enterprise, it's not a good thing. Unrelated adult family member or a related adult family member still kind of be, the acorn doesn't fall from the tree. Is this a good person? The unrelated adult, that comes back to are we vetting them properly? And so that's important. Foster care system, is not always the best in this country. It's one of the things I work with now. But the idea is just make sure that when we rescue that child, they get all the appropriate attention and services they need, and that we don't put them right back where we rescued them from.
Can and or do people volunteer within your organization to be non-related adult volunteers?
I'm sure. I don't know that if people within ORR or HHS were doing that. I think that's kind of a conflict.
No, I mean, like if somebody listening said, "Hey, I want to help," could they come to ORR? And
you can find that through I think the ORR website of how to become a sponsor.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.